Welcome to episode 49 of Ask the Masters. On this episode, Dave Penton sits in as Michelle Kavanaugh and Dave Rockwell start their journey with the PoolPro podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching the pool service industry all about everything that they should know to run a successful business in the swimming pool industry. Welcome to Ask the Masters.
Welcome in today. My name is Dave from Ask the Masters, and we have a super special episode today. So I have two real good friends in the house with me today, and this is going to be a continuation of the Ask the Masters podcast. So for those of you that don't know, I've got Dave Rockwell sitting here and Michelle Kavanaugh. And so ladies go first. So Michelle, can you introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
where you came from?
To. Michelle Kavanaugh. I'm currently the executive director of the California Pool and Spa Association, but previously with the National Swimming Pool Foundation for 14 years as the mission development director, and just took on this role last year. So I'm very excited to be representing in California.
So what, if you had to dial your passion down into one or two sentences, what is it that you, number one, love about the pool industry? And then what is, if you could do something 24 hours a day within the industry, within your job, and define your job, what would be the thing that would get your heart racing?
Great question. And in fact, I just talked about this at an IPSA meeting recently. My son has Asperger's. He's 24 now, but at the time when I started at the National Swimming Pool Foundation, I was a single mom and really struggling. And this industry surrounded me with love and acceptance and caring and resources and a way to really get through life, because I was struggling at that time. And now I'm giving back. And I just did this at an IPSA meeting where I feel so much love for this industry. And now it's my turn to wrap my arms around people who really need assistance in this industry and help them out. And so for me, my goal, my absolutely number one goal, if I could do it, just like you said, all day long, every day, would be getting on the phone and talking to people who are struggling in their business, especially service guys who I think are really struggling, a lot of them, and just find out a way to help them. That's really absolutely 100% my passion. And I hope that comes out when I do speaking engagements, because it truly is something that I feel heartfelt about. I mean, I truly feel like this industry surrounded me with love and acceptance, and now I'm going to give it back.
Awesome. We're going to get into the mission of what we're hoping this podcast to be in a little bit, but yeah, that's wonderful. Many of you have already met Dave. Dave and I had a great episode on ozone, and so Dave, reintroduce yourself to the people that may not have seen that episode.
Dave Rockwell. Yeah, I founded a pool service company called Liquid Paradise. Our goal with that company was to provide the best water quality possible for people who actually swim in the pool. And that's my passion. That's what I'm all about. And that's the place in this industry that I'm most happy.
Yeah, and so you're still doing a little bit of service. You know, you do all of my, I run Fluid Dynamics and we build pools, and you do all of our programming and startups and that. But you're really transitioning as well into more of an educational type of a role, and this podcast is just one avenue that you're wanting to grow that side of it. So tell me what your passion for the industry is, because I know, like Michelle, you really have a desire to give back to the industry. And so tell me a little bit what you feel like you can offer to the industry that's unique.
Well, what we're hoping to do with this podcast is I've been a consumer of industry-based education for 30 years. There is some very timely classes I've taken at critical points in my career that sent me off in a whole new direction and raised my abilities up to a whole new level. And that's exactly what I hope to do here. It's not that I necessarily myself have anything great to teach anybody that they don't know, but I want to help people find where the really good next class is that they should take, regardless of where they are in the industry or where they started. There's plenty of really high quality information out there, and that's what we want to introduce you to. The other thing I love about this industry is like Michelle said, there's terrific people out here. There's some great minds, there's some great personalities, and we want to introduce you to some of them. And it'll be informative, it'll be entertaining. We're going to have some fun along the way, but that's our
That
goal
is the
here.
truth.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of at a real interesting juncture here, beginning of 2020, when we're recording this. There are a number of podcasts coming online right now, and it seems like this platform is really gaining traction within the pool industry. And I know from my perspective, and I know from talking to both of you, we embrace all of it.
We do.
Absolutely.
You cannot get enough education. You can't get enough information. And so the goal of Ask the Masters and this podcast is just to be another voice.
Exactly.
And we have different perspectives, all of us. So I think having all of our perspectives out there and what we can share and offer to the industry, just like you mentioned, Dave, is important. We have our own particular perspective on many issues and hope that that's going to help people.
And the same story told from more than one perspective gives you a more well-rounded view of the matter. And so that's what we hope to be, is just one more voice that's maybe helping people find a direction that they want to go.
So as we've been kind of toying around with different names for the podcast, one of the names that was real close that didn't actually stick was the Service Industry Professional Podcast. And I think that really encapsulates the desire that you guys have is to, the pool service industry doesn't have the greatest name. And that's not to say anything bad about the people within it.
Right.
And so I think one of the goals that you guys have both stated is that you want to put forth that there are true professionals within the pool industry, number one. And then number two, also to encourage people and to be building people up that, hey, this is something that you should be striving for.
Absolutely. I call it elevate.
Yeah. So I'd like each of you to kind of answer that question and what your vision is for how you want to implement that.
Well, what I've seen as the industry's grown and as I've aged in the business is that from where we were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, we've come a long way. The level of professionalism is definitely on the rise. The availability, the accessibility of really high quality education is on the rise. And that's all a good thing. It needs to get better. There's things we're doing well that we could even do better. There's things where we're still behind the curve. One of the things I think that this industry has to do as it becomes more educated, we need to be able to convey that and educate the pool users and the pool operators that we work for, do a better job of teaching the consumer what they have a right to ask for, teaching the pool operators, if you're going to provide a public pool for people, this is what you should be looking at, not just the simple dollars and cents, but the product that you're offering your customers. One of the areas we've done a really good job of in the cooperation within the industry and organizations, advocacy organizations, is in the area of drowning prevention.
Absolutely.
I just saw a thing on one of my Facebook forums that drownings are starting to go down, and that's terrific. We need to keep that up, and hopefully we're going to have some podcasts on that and introduce you to some of the people that are making that happen. But we have some areas where I would like to see a more educated consumer in terms of the water quality that they expect. I can't tell you how many times I walk up to a public pool and see kids swimming in green water that you can't even see the main drain. And I turn my kids around and say, sorry, we're going to find something else to do. But what we need is a more educated consumer that they know what they're actually jumping into when they get into a pool like that. So it's all about education. It's all about when you know better, you can do better.
Sure.
And for me, just to touch on what Dave said, I see it, and I used the word elevate before, but for me, it's an elevation of your level of professionalism, your success of your business. Because in my mind, if you are elevating your professional level, your business success will grow. And for me, I want to be able to help them not only from what Dave has been talking about in a lot of ways on the technical side of things, but also on the business side of things. You know, being able to help someone, making sure they're following the rules, and they have somebody doing their books, or they're being, anything that's business tool related. I want to be able to provide resources and help them to be successful, because if you're successful, in my mind, not only you're elevating your professionalism, but you're just happier.
One of my dreams for you guys as you guys are embarking on this is from the builder segment. There's so much, animosity is not the right word, but there's so much tension between the service industry and the builders and the plasterers and everything. And that's really one of my visions with all of the podcast, is that we really start to break down some of those walls. And there are tough conversations that need to have. And but everybody in the industry is, you look at, there's so many silos within the industry. And I feel like we're really starting to break that down, and like you had alluded to earlier, we're starting to see movement and everything. I really want to see the builders and people from my position have more people like you. I know that you have my back when you walk in a backyard, and I know that I can trust you to give the client the best possible result, but then not throw me under the bus too, because there are mistakes that get made.
There's no such thing as a perfect pool, even though yours are darn close.
Well, thank you. But yeah, all pools, there are some issues, and they may not even be necessarily mistakes. They're just things that,
comes back to educating the consumer, managing their expectations.
Sure.
And so, and I think a lot of the, maybe what creates conflict between service and builders isn't so much animosity as it is misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Understanding the challenge, a service guy should understand the challenges that a builder had to go through to get that pool done. Customers, even with seemingly unlimited budgets on really elaborate pools, make some very odd decisions about where they're going to value engineer and cut corners.
Exactly.
And the pool builder doesn't always have a say in that. From the builder standpoint, they need to understand what's required of a pool service guy to really keep a pool up. The National Plasterers Council has very strict guidelines as far as water chemistry and startups, but there's more to it than that. That's really job 2 for a pool service. Quality, healthy water for the bathers is job 1. And so that may require that you add chemicals to the pool that are going to throw off the delicate balance of what's ideal for the plaster. But understanding that on the part of the builders will help them maybe not be as quick to point fingers at the service company.
And don't you also think, Dave, part of your professionalism is really being a recommendation for someone? So if you have a relationship with builders, then all of a sudden they know you're going to take good care of their pool when they leave, so that they'll recommend you to the homeowner and be able to say these companies are really good. We know that they're going to take care, especially if you do like chemical automation or something, where a lot of the service guys may not even know how to work that or run it or anything, different things. But I think having mentors, if you will, which Dave really believes in, I know, but having a group of builders that you can go to when you have questions, and having a group of service guys that builders can go to when they want to recommend the next service company for a pool they built.
Yeah, there really needs to be a lot more crossover on that.
Yeah, and I think the tension between the two, you hit on it really well. It's there's just a lack of communication, and you're right. It's not animosity. It's just a lot of builders just turn it over and never have any. They never have any thought process to what the service guy has to go through when he's got to stand on his head, leaning over the heater to change that motor in the back that's up against the wall. So I think as we start to work together, the service industry has some very important and very critical things to say to us as builders that we need to pay attention to. And the reason why I love this whole concept is that as we build up and as we expose service professionals to some of the challenges that we have as builders and that, then it just helps all of us all the way around.
Yeah. And as far as establishing a relationship from the standpoint of a service professional, establishing a relationship with a high quality builder, the pools that you will get on service from that relationship, you could never advertise and get that number of that quality of pool on your route. And when you advertise for pools like that, you're always out there busting your knuckles against guys that are going to charge $10, $15, $20, $100 a month less than you. But with a recommendation from the builder, this is my guy. He knows how I build a pool. He knows what I expect. He knows what I want to see if I walk back on this project 2 years later. That kind of a recommendation is just priceless.
In respect to what you guys are going to do on this podcast is just that there are codes, and you have the Model Aquatic Health Code. The codes do not just pertain to me as a builder, and I have to follow the codes. There are certain things and certain parameters that the service industry needs to be aware of, and really to become a true professional, you need to understand that. And so you guys are really going to start touching on all of that, and then obviously swimming pools is the integration. I mean.
And from my standpoint, I'm much more fascinated by the technical aspects of pools and not so much the politics. But where politics come into play, whether you pay attention to it or like it or not, politics translate into laws. And so understanding how they affect us, understanding who's out there talking and fighting in our behalf to prevent unreasonable laws, it's important. You can't just spend all your time in the field and not think about these things. So that's
It'll be a nice balance between the two.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yes.
So I know we've been kind of brainstorming this for a few weeks now as we've kind of brought this together. I'm super excited that we're finally here. Let's not name any names yet, but what episodes that you guys have already kind of brainstorming, you already kind of have either in the works or putting, what are you guys the most excited about that we can kind of whet the appetite of everybody? Where are you going? What topics are you going to be presenting?
One of the first ones that I'm very excited to have Michelle be able to explain a little bit more is about her organizations like at the CPSA, organizations that are working to educate lawmakers and kind of stand up and fight on our behalf. There are similar organizations in other parts of the country, and there's a need for more. So we're gonna kind of talk about that. We're gonna talk about, particularly in California, some of the laws that are
potentially could go across the country to other areas.
And California kind of leads the nation in big government.
Yes.
And but it's catching on. A lot of laws that start in California are catching on elsewhere. Not every law governing our industry is a bad law,
right?
But some of them actually do protect somebody who's wanting to operate professionally. But there are others that are just a little bit too intrusive, make things a little bit too difficult and expensive, and so.
The other part, too, of that is just the county level versus the state level. What I find, at least in the state of California, is sometimes the county guy doesn't even understand what the state law is, and they're enforcing it in the wrong way. And I've found that many times here in California, members that'll call us and say, hey, I had the inspector come in, and they told me that I have to put a fence here, and it was between, a lake and the house and different things. But it wasn't even one of the 7 things that they have to have, in the state of the levels of protection. They were enforcing it in the wrong way, so we had to contact them directly. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, that level of,
Right.
there's a lot of misunderstanding about those types of things out there. And it's like, if you try to talk to in my opinion, a service guy or a builder and say, hey, you work through all of this and try to figure it out, they'd be like, we don't understand any of this. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's complicated. And I think we're going to talk a lot about education, about elevating yourself professionally. There's lots of people we can interview on this subject, which I think is very exciting, doing some interviews from people who are really involved in these types of things.
Like I said, there's a lot of great minds
There are.
in this industry, and Michelle knows probably more of them than I do. I know I've met my share of them, and I would like to introduce people to them. And I feel very confident that as we do this, we're going to meet more of them along the way.
Absolutely.
And so as we do that, we're going to bring them in and introduce you to them.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing as we're a year into Ask the Masters now, and just the people that we have discovered, it's like, wow, this guy, is doing really great stuff. And the behind the scenes guys that don't toot their own horn. But once you start to kind of get to know, it's like, okay, there's more here that I really, I can benefit from personally, and having them share their knowledge out. Somebody that's not going to necessarily want to be in front of a camera,
Right.
But if we can drag them in front of a camera. So I know you're going to kind of get in the weeds a little bit. I mean, you intend to get pretty deep into like chemical automation and ORP and pH, and start to really dive deep into like nuts and bolts type for service professionals, trying to dispel some of those myths.
Well, there's myths, and there's also a lot of theories being touted. Different pH levels, different things to add to the water to do certain things. And it's not a matter of some of it's the absolute right way to do things and some of it's just complete misinformation. It's being able to take in that knowledge, understand what they're trying to teach you, and then apply it to your pool. And does this really work for me? Is this fulfilling the goal of the water quality that I'm trying to give my customers? So the best way to be able to make an educated decision about that is to hear the whole side of the story and try it out. We're hopefully going to bring in some brilliant people who understand pool science and maybe talk a little bit about how we as pool professionals can take a more scientific approach to how we manage our pools. So there's some good stuff that we're kicking around.
The fun part of that day is going to try to get him to talk in layman's terms and not at the PhD level. That's going to be the fun part of that conversation.
And see,
can you take it down a notch?
This is where we're being introduced on Ask the Masters, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not the masters. I'm the one who's asking.
Well, I kind of question that, but...
Well, we all, the term that I always come back to, or the definition that I always come back to is to be a mentor, you don't have to have it all together.
Right. Agreed.
You do my pools, and there's sometimes you come and, Dave, can you send the boys out? And, so we all have places that we can continue to grow. And as a mentor, you only need to be one step ahead of whoever is behind you. Yeah. So, and that's really, if we tied everything down into a nutshell, what you guys want to be is a digital mentor, a voice for the industry, and bringing in different perspectives. So, I am super, super excited about this because I think it's again, there's other podcasts out there, and there's other service-related podcasts, which are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just going to bring a different perspective, and every different perspective, we talked about it earlier, is relevant, and your opinion may be different from Dave's, may be different from mine, and getting that all out there in the marketplace so that you, as the listener, can then come in and say, okay, hey, I kind of take 30% of Dave and 70% of Michelle, and you make your own opinions, because none of us have all the answers, and none of us are doing everything perfect. We're not.
That's correct.
We're not the Bible of any means.
No.
Yep.
So All right. Well, thank you guys for agreeing to do this, and I'm so excited to see where you guys take this. This is going to be
fun.
awesome.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Ask the Masters is dedicated to educating, mentoring, and designing a better workplace for the swimming pool industry and their families. Please take a moment to share, like, and review our content with all of those that would be interested.